I never thought I'd say this, but there's a part of me that misses the fire, the way our arguments used to be, where everything felt raw and real. Now it's quiet, and I wonder if we've lost something in trying to keep the peace. It's strange how time changes you, how you can go from being angry at someone to wishing for the very moments that made you feel something. The fights, the tension, they were always followed by a resolution that felt like a bond renewed. In a way, those heated arguments were a sign of life between us. Now that they're gone, I can't help but feel like we've lost a part of us that once thrived in the chaos. Fighting wasn't always fun, but it was real. Now we've become so careful with our words that I wonder if we've lost our authenticity. I miss the honesty, even when it came with hurt. I miss the rush of the argument, the way it would feel like everything was falling apart, only to have us rebuild it stronger. Without those moments, everything feels stagnant, like we're holding back parts of ourselves. You never know how much you miss something until it's gone. Those arguments, as intense as they were a way for me to know you cared. The silence now leaves me wondering what's truly left between us. I never imagined I'd long for the moments when we didn't agree, but I miss how alive it made me feel. Now it's all about avoiding conflict, and sometimes that just feels empty. I miss the way you would challenge me, push my buttons, and make me think. Even in the heat of the moment, there was something beautiful about the way we both cared enough to fight. There was something intimate about our arguments. It wasn't just about the words we said. It was about how deeply we felt, how much we were willing to argue for each other. Now, I wonder if we've lost that depth. Sometimes, the things we fight about are the very things that show us how deeply we care. I miss those passionate exchanges where it felt like we were both so invested in making it work. There was a time when every fight felt like a battle for understanding, and even if we didn't always win, we always learned something about each other. Now, without the fights, I'm left wondering if we've stopped learning. I miss the way our fights would challenge my own thinking. It wasn't just about winning or losing, it was about growth. Now we've become so careful not to upset each other that it feels like we've stopped growing. Fighting with you wasn't always easy, but it was always real. It was a way for us to connect, even if it didn't feel like it at the time. I never thought I'd say it, but I miss that connection. I miss the fire in your eyes when we disagreed. It wasn't anger, it was passion, it was feeling, And it was a part of the relationship I never realized I needed until it was gone. It sounds strange, but sometimes I find myself missing the tension. It was a sign we were still fighting for what we wanted, for what we believed in. Now, it feels like we're just coasting, and I don't know if that's a good thing. There was something so raw and real about our arguments. They were the moments when we showed our true selves, when we didn't hide behind facades. I miss that authenticity, even if it meant hurting each other sometimes. I never thought I'd miss the fights, but I miss the way they brought us closer. They were hard, but they were always followed by a reconciliation that felt like we were in this together, no matter what. I've realized that without our arguments, there's a quiet emptiness. We've become so careful with each other, so afraid of rocking the boat, that I wonder if we've lost the spark that made us feel alive. We used to fight, but it was always because we cared so much. Now, everything feels so controlled, like we're avoiding the inevitable. I miss the passion, the intensity of knowing we were both in this, for better or worse. I miss the way we'd argue for hours, not because we wanted to win, but because we wanted to be understood. Now it feels like we're just letting things slide, and I wonder if we're truly hearing each other anymore. The silence between us is sometimes harder to bear than the words we used to exchange in the heat of the moment. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss the passion, the emotions, even the anger. It feels like we've stopped fighting for each other, and in a way, I miss that. We were once so willing to argue, to make things work, and now it feels like we've settled into something quieter. But I'm not sure it's better. The absence of fights doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something's missing. We've become so careful not to upset each other that I wonder if we're losing the connection we once had. Fighting with you wasn't just about the disagreement, it was about showing up, about standing up for what we believed in. I miss the intensity, the energy, the way we would fight for us. Now that the arguments have stopped, I realize how much I miss the passion behind them. They weren't just fights, they were moments of vulnerability, moments when we truly expressed how much we cared. The silence has taken over, and with it, a sense of distance. I miss the fire, the argument, even the hurt, because it was a sign we were still deeply invested. Now it feels like we're just going through the motions. I never thought I'd miss the conflict, but the truth is, those fights brought out the truth in us. They forced us to confront things we might have otherwise avoided. I miss that confrontation, even if it was hard. Fights weren't easy, but they were real. They kept us on our toes, made us think, and helped us grow. Now, without them, I feel like we've lost a part of the relationship that kept us moving forward. I miss the way we disagree, but then find our way back to each other. It was in those moments of tension that we learned the most about each other. Now, I wonder if we've stopped learning. Fighting wasn't just about arguing, it was about understanding. Now we've become so afraid of conflict that it feels like we've stopped trying to understand each other's perspectives. I miss the way our fights would reveal the depth of our emotions. Now it feels like we're holding back, like we're afraid to say what's really on our minds. I miss the honesty, even when it was painful. There's something strange about missing a fight, but I miss the way it felt to be in the middle of one with you, to be vulnerable, to be real. Without it, everything feels a little too controlled, too quiet. I miss the moments when we would argue and then make up. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about connecting, about proving we cared enough to work through the tough times. The quiet between us feels like a space where things are left unsaid. I never thought I'd say it, but I miss the way our fights made us face the things we were too afraid to talk about otherwise. Fighting wasn't always easy, but it was always honest. Now, without the fights, I feel like we've stopped being as open with each other. I miss the rawness, the realness of those moments. In some ways, I miss the chaos, the arguments, the tension, the emotions. They made me feel like we were really here, really present. Now it feels like we're just drifting. I never thought I'd miss fighting with you, but in those arguments, we showed each other our true selves. We were raw, vulnerable, and real. Without them, it feels like we're holding back parts of ourselves. The quiet moments are supposed to be peaceful, but I find myself longing for the intensity of our arguments. They were messy, but they were also a way for us to truly connect, to fight for what we believed in. I miss the way we used to argue fiercely and passionately, only to come back stronger. Now it feels like we've stopped fighting for each other, and I wonder if that's a sign of something fading between us. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss the way our fights would leave me breathless, the way we would challenge each other. Now, everything feels too calm, too predictable. The absence of conflict doesn't feel like peace. It feels like we've stopped trying to fight for each other, to fight for what we want. I miss the way we used to push each other to be better. I miss the rawness of our arguments, the way they forced us to confront the truth. Without them, it feels like we're avoiding something, like we're too afraid to face the hard truths. It's strange how much I miss the fights. They were difficult, but they were also necessary. They were a sign we cared, a sign we were willing to fight for something real. Now, when we don't argue, it feels like we've lost that spark, that drive to make things work. I miss the way we used to fight, not because we didn't care, but because we cared so deeply.